Thankfully, in about 3 hours from now, in fact less than 3 hours from now, no more election TV ads. That's the national cheer that just went up. My God, haven't they been negative? Haven't they been boring? Haven't they been repetitive? Haven't they been so frustrating? There have been the weird ones from Clive Palmer that he's filmed on his own golf course. On his golf course. I'm sure he one day would like to dream of owning a coast, but he's on his golf course. You've got Kevin Rudd, who started off being the man who was inviting you onto his back porch. Of course, he sort of disappeared, didn't he, in most of the ads? Most of those ads were about poor little kids having the lights turned off on them. And as for the Liberals, they tried to do some positive ads, but the best thing they could say about Joe Hockey was that he was a Howard government minister. Seriously? Some of the best ads have been the piss take ones, and they're the ones that we can't show you right now. But the best thing of all is that these ads finish tonight. Now, we'll talk about the ads a little later, but it is the soft advertising and the soft media where the rest of this election will be fought. Now, we are in the time where compulsory voting is something that those of us who read all day and talk about politics all day and watch stations like this get frustrated with, because there will be literally thousands, maybe even 1 million or so people who will walk into the polling booth on Saturday and couldn't give a stuff. They might donkey vote, they might not vote at all, they might do joke votes, they might muck around with their preferences. They are completely up for grabs. Now, these people aren't going to decide the election, but they are going to decide some seats in this election. They will decide whether the people who will represent your local area are going to be the people who are actually going to become part of the government, or the drones of the opposition, or they will just simply be wasted votes that people on the other side of the world are willing to die for to actually get the chance to do. So soft media is where the next few days will be. You can forget about interviews on AM radio. You're not going to see politicians turning up on stations like ours. If you listen to FM radio, I'm sorry, but you are going to get nothing but politicians randomly calling in. Literally, both Kevin Rudd and Tony Abbott. I promise you this, there are breakfast shows in parts of Australia who don't know that tomorrow morning they will have guests on their show that is the Prime Minister and the potential future Prime Minister. They will literally just ring in on the open line because they want to get to the people who couldn't give a stuff about the election. A perfect example of that is about 1 million people every night who sit around and watch the TV show Big Brother. Now, earlier in the week, I joked about the fact that all of these people are inside the house and will be doing an absentee vote. So Channel 9 decided to do, as part of its stunt for Big Brother, they got all of the leaders to make a pledge and make a little video message to the House, and the House ultimately decided to vote like a mini people's forum, but people with no brains, of people in a mini people's forum to decide who should become Prime Minister. Now, Tony Abbott did this awkward thing with both of his daughters. Seriously, get over the daughters thing. Clive Palmer did, well, his usual Clive Palmerness, and guess what? Christine Milne made no sense whatsoever. But 1 million people tonight on television saw this. This was Kevin Rudd talking about same-sex marriage. Look at the reaction and imagine how many people who couldn't give a stuff about this election may well have been moved by what they saw. Have a look.
All of us should be allowed to marry the one we love. That's why, if I'm elected Prime Minister, I will support marriage equality legislation within the first 100 days of the Parliament. I won't force anyone on this issue. It will be a free vote for members of the Labor Party. So if you support gay marriage, I will need your support for this election. It's time to make things better. It's time for marriage equality.
Now, what's important about this is that there were people who probably have paid no attention who think that Kevin Rudd's the gay marriage guy. Kevin Rudd is the guy who is going to bring in laws that will change the world for gay marriage. Now, you know and I know that that's not true. In fact, I think of all of the things that Kevin Rudd has done in the past 6 weeks or so, perhaps the most insincere and the nastiest of all has been the issue in and around same-sex marriage. Now, his supporters want to say, oh, you've got to give it to him because he's the first Prime Minister who ever said that same-sex marriage should become the law of the land. But however, somehow he is powerless to be able to make it become the law of the land should he win the election on Saturday. And here's where we get to the nasty bit. Here's where 1 million people tonight on television, plus the gay blokes in that house, and thousands of people around the country who desperately want this to happen are being conned by Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd does support same-sex marriage, but he has rigged a way to support it, but not actually deliver it, to make a grand statement, but to not actually change a single person's life. He's going to have a conscience vote. And the last time there was a conscience vote, just months ago, in the federal parliament, Kevin Rudd was one of an extreme majority of Labor MPs who voted against it. Kevin Rudd is the Prime Minister of our country. He is the man who, as one of the terms for him coming back and being leader, was able to overturn more than 100 years of Labor Party tradition about how they choose the leader. That was his opinion, and he steamrolled over everyone. But apparently he's powerless on something that moves people to tears to actually promise to pass a law, not just have a vote that will die as soon as his election fortunes will on Saturday. It's nasty to raise people's hopes, especially on something as important as this. And I know a lot of people watching this show can't stand the issue and wish we'd all move on. Fine and fair enough. But when people are being moved to tears because they think there's a chance of their relationships being recognised, that is below base politics. It's snake belly stuff.